Well, first of all, I used to know how to share my screen on here, but I forgot.
There's a blue, not blue, green share screen button.
Yeah, that one. Okay. And then there is this. And it's honestly just to keep me on track. It's nothing too crazy. Okay. Y'all tell me what you see.
We can see the slides.
Okay, cool deal. All right, so hi, I'm Octavia. I think everyone knows by now I'm a first year dental student. And I really just kind of wanted to share with you my journey into dental school and what that looked like. So, just a little about me and my background. I'm from Warsaw, North Carolina, which is about maybe an hour and a half from here. It's in Duplin County, and there are actually more pigs than people, just to give you a reference of what it's like. It's kind of on the way to Wilmington, so south direction. And I think it's important to mention that there are, excuse me, 10% of people of the 58,000 people that live there, they have a bachelor's degree or higher. So basically, that means when I was growing up, I really didn't have that many people to look up to even think that I wanted to be a dentist. It was kind of either you were a teacher or you worked at the chicken farm or the hog farm or the McDonald's. So your options were a bit limited. And a few people made it out, and I'm proud to be one of those, along with some of my high school classmates. So, me in particular, I went to undergrad at ECU and I majored in health services management and business administration. And so, most people that are in medicine major in biology or chemistry, something in the sciences, because the obvious. But I was actually pretty scared, actually. I wasn't really sure if I was that smart because, I come from this little small hick town. And my mom is actually working in a nursing home. So I was like, worst case scenario, I could just work in a nursing home with my mom, right? Turns out like health services management and business administration was a good thing because we're not exactly taught that in school. So um, in undergrad, I actually worked like a lot because, that's what people have to do. And it was actually 5 jobs at one time at some point. And so even though I was fairly smart, my transcript still said that I worked 5 jobs at one time. So everyone's dream is to do your prereqs, apply, get into med or dental school, and you're good to go. That didn't work out for me because I still had like a 3.2 GPA, which is, in my opinion, pretty good for working 5 jobs, but dental school wasn't exactly looking for that. So I actually did a year off or two, and I tried to take some summer classes, and that still didn't really shake it. And I tried to take the DAT and maybe sneak my way into dental school, and I didn't put much effort into it. I kind of like found some stuff online. I was like, 2 weeks of studying, I'm smart, I can do it. But yeah, I didn't. I didn't, and I applied, and I didn't get any interviews anywhere, and I was looking crazy. So, in my let's see time in between, I worked in real estate for a little bit just to maybe try something new because I was like, maybe dental school is not for me. And then I ended up doing some modeling as well. And in modeling, I was on the cover of a magazine, and the dean at the dental school happened to see it. So in that, people had a little interview in the back. And in there, I mentioned that I started USNDA at ECU. And so when the dean saw that, she found my email somehow, and she was like, hey, like, I know I saw this, but I don't really know you. So how about come talk to me? So by that time, I'm like, oh, I'm a model now, girl. I'm not going to be a dentist, but whatever. I'll come talk to you. And so in that, she convinced me. She's like, I just need you to take some more classes, maybe do a master's program, retake the DAT, and we'll reconsider and look at what you got. So I'm like, this modeling thing kind of fun. What do you mean? But I really took that as like a sign from God if you are a believer. And it was like, okay, like, I gave up on myself, but this person that does not know me took the energy to find me, and we're going to do it. So they actually recommended that I go to Mississippi College, which they have a great biomedical program there as well. But I'm like, a little Black girl in Mississippi that knows no one. I don't know about that. So I actually did my own research and found Berry University in Florida. And they actually have the #1 record of getting people into professional schools. So I took myself to Miami and did the program there. I still say it's probably one of the best decisions of my life, even though it was extra money, extra time, extra resources. But I feel like it prepared me pretty well. And so I also found this program called iPrep for the DAT. It's based out of Florida as well. And with the master's program and taking the DAT through that program, here we are. So I like to tell people, it's dental school or med school, it's never a straight line unless you are one in like a millionth person that actually gets lucky. So don't feel bad if your journey is kind of like down here at the bottom. You got to go over some valleys and some roads and get on the boat and go through a house. It's totally normal. And I feel like for people that look like us, this is more of the journey, the not straight line path. And so what I did differently between applying the first time and the second time is I took myself serious. I think that's super important, where you can get sidetracked and, let's say, working another job or having too many projects. Being serious and taking it seriously, it's a lot of money. So realizing the investment, I think that's also just a part of taking it seriously. And then you have to make up in your mind, like, yes, I am smart enough to do this. Yes, I am going to be a doctor. Yes, I will do whatever it takes to make it happen for myself. And whatever it takes also means kind of just shutting everything down. If you have to delete Instagram for a week while you study, if you have to not go to somebody's birthday party, um, don't feel bad for choosing yourself first when making your decisions and when it comes to school. And in the long run, it'll pay off. So do what you have to do for you. And I just think the big part is perseverance. Of course, by definition, it is persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. And that honestly just means just never give up. There are going to be so many people, even for me, in undergrad, I had an advisor, the pre-health advisor, who was like looking at my transcripts and everything else. And they're like, maybe you should try something else, because this dentistry thing not going to work for you the way it's looking. And you have to tell yourself, excuse me, Miss Lady here, I'm going to be a dentist because I said I'm going to be a dentist. And if I have to go to school 10 more years, I will until it happens. And that's another thing. I think Courtney is going to really speak on the challenges people like us go through and the things that you have to deal with in making it happen for yourself. So that's kind of all that I really wanted to share with you guys. If you have any questions for me after this, you can always find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube under Becoming Doctor, where I'll answer anything you want all the time. I'm there most of the day anyway. So thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Octavia, for that kind of entrance leading us to where we're going next. Your slideshow was beautiful, but I don't have one on today, and that's okay, because just some things have, occurred that have deterred me from making the slideshow that I really wanted to make. But, however, like Octavia said, I wanted to discuss with you all and pretty much have like a discussion and a conversation, just answer any questions that you might have during this time. We all know it's no shock, the recent events that have occurred that have highlighted in a different way, different deficiencies in racial equity. That has made it kind of difficult for us to get in the spaces that we are today. And so all of us have that in common. All of us have that journey. And so I was just reflecting, and I was like, what are some things that I can share with individuals that look like me, to help them in staying motivated during the application process, and while they're currently in college and in their matriculation to dental school. So my first things first, I want to thank you all for letting me have this opportunity to speak with you all. And anything that I mention after this is in no affiliation with ECU SODM. So first things first is I believe that it's important for you all to stay true to your mission, whatever that mission is. And for me, I wake up one day and it varies from the previous day. But when you're thinking about your mission, think about what excites me, what drains me. What is the first thing I think about when I wake up? What's the last thing I think about when I go to bed? What are my goals? What are my morals? What are my values? And let yourself know those things. And I'm often reminded of, if you all are familiar with Insecure, when Issa Rae was speaking to herself in the mirror during like season 1 of Insecure. I identify with that so much because I often find myself in the mirror, hey girl, cheer myself on. And since I've started dental school, I've actually had this phrase that I often repeat to myself in the mirror. And I started with, I do this for. And I let it be flexible and fluid. So let's say I'm having a hard day for myself, for example. I say, I do this for, I believe in God, I'm a Christian, so I do this for the glory of God. Or let's say my family member is having a difficult time and they call me and they're like, hey, I really had a tough day at work today and I just wanted to call and vent. I do this for my cousin who is having to do a difficult day at work, for example. And I have adopted that. And again, that varies, what that looks like daily. And at first I was stuck on having a set mission to describe everything, but I was like, the events are so different every single day, and we've experienced that like never before, to this week and the previous week, the week prior to this week. So my second thing in that is owning your story, and owning your story to get to the next level of excellence. So a lot of time we say Black excellence, and like that has become a coined phrase in communities similar to ours. And I've thought about it, and I was like, excellence is excellence. Yes, Black excellence is a beautiful thing. And I believe in certain spaces we use that Black excellence. But the truth is that we're Black and we're excellent. And so I say owning your story. So what are different things about you? Everybody has a different story. So for me personally, I have affiliation with the military. My dad served, protect, and serve. We heard that phrase a lot this past couple weeks. But my dad served the U.S. Army for 24 years. And so I'm 23 years old right now, and my dad has been out of the Army for 10 years. So that just goes to show you that I entered this world being a military brat. Another thing about me is I went to let me back up. Well, I can go there. I went to a predominantly white, Christian, conservative school. okay, from 5th grade to 12th grade. Now let's start at kindergarten. So at kindergarten, due to the military, I was overseas in Germany, where I spent my preschool education there. I spent my kindergarten education and about a half of my first grade year there. And during this time, I mean, I was so young, and there's parts that I can remember and parts that I can't. But one thing I do remember is learning some of the German culture during this time. I went to American school on the military base, but they made sure that we had some education kind of steered to the climate or the geographic location that we were in. And so when I came in 1st grade to Fayetteville, North Carolina, where I reside now and where I'm currently at due to COVID-19, but things changed a little bit. And when I went through let's say 1st through 4th grade, and when I got to 4th grade, school for me it just kind of came easy. Like school was like, oh yeah, I study, I do, I read what I need to read to get by, and I go on to the next step, which is taking the test and getting an A on the test, or AR points, if y'all are familiar with AR points and stuff. Read my books so I can get my AR points. And that's the furthest that, when it came to school, the furthest that I thought. And it wasn't until the end of my 4th grade year where my parents attended a parent teacher conference, and found out that, yes, I was an all A student, but my reading levels were the lowest in the class. And my parents were like, this was something that you're aware of before the end of the school year. Why didn't you say anything? And she was like, oh, well, my teacher's response was, oh, well, I didn't think it was that important because this year's not a testing year. And just to give you a little background, this person was of African American descent. And so my parents were like, wow, like, oh, okay. And so they kind of took that and they made the decision, and I was not happy like with the decision at all, but they made the decision to sacrifice. At that point, it was a huge sacrifice, but they said, we will find some resources, but this is something that we believe in, and we're going to we want they wanted Courtney to be challenged in order to grow. And so I went on to this school, and this school taught me many of things. Most importantly, it taught me how to navigate and talk to and build relationships with people that didn't look like me. In this just to share with you just one experience. For example, I told my parents literally years after, I think I was in college when I thought about it, and I was just thinking, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was the impact that they were trying to do. So I'll tell you about this. I'm not going to share the school, but we one day in my 6th grade class, we walked into the classroom, and my teacher said, hey everyone, come in and sit down and start filling out the sheet of paper on your desk. And so we all sat down and we started filling out the sheet of paper. But when I was filling it out, I was like, it was just asking basic questions like, what's your name? What's your age? What's your address? Are you married? And when I saw are you married, I was like, married or single? We're in 6th grade. No, I'm not married, or it was like, what's your occupation? And I was like, occupation? What's that? A job? I mean, I'm a student, and all this stuff. And we filled it out. I filled it out to the best of my ability. And they're like, all right. She was like, put your pen on your desk when you're done, or put your pencil on your desk when you're done. And so I did that. And she was like, do you all know what you just signed up for? And everybody was like, signed up for? What do you mean signed up for? She was like, well, I want to let you all know that everyone in this classroom just signed up for the KKK. And I was just like, and mind you, this is the first time, because my parents, my mom always taught me that this is the time, like, Courtney, you have to go twice as hard as a Black female. You have to be as twice as good to get into certain spaces. She's always taught me that, but she's never taught me this is why, or this is the history of, at this point, at my 6th grade level. And so I was like, and so when she said KKK, I was like, first of all, what's the KKK? What is that? And then what Ku Klux Klan? Like, what? Like, what did they do? And, she ended that class. First of all, it was a white female that was my teacher. But she ended that class on, you need to, before you sign up for something, you need to know what you're signing up for. And also to show that the application on paper looks so innocent compared to the mission. Now, when I thought about it, I was in my head at fast forward, a junior in college, was thinking, hey, this is not culturally competent education. Not at all. Knowing that you have a history, like, for example, she didn't know my family history or know some of the ties that link back to me, but she knows the history of America, or at least have an idea, since she's teaching a history class. And so that was kind of just one of many stories I could tell you about. For example, when I went to college, or not college, when I was still in high school, my senior year, I was the co-captain of the cheerleading squad. I had did cheerleading literally since first grade. I've done competition cheer, I've done high school cheer, JV varsity, all of that. And my senior year of high school, I was kind of on the fence about doing cheer because I was kind of over it. I was like, I've done all the competitions, I won, I went to tumbling class, I got to flip and all that stuff. And I was just like, no, let's keep doing it, let's go. And that year, I was the only Black girl on my cheerleading squad. Everybody else was white. And it was fine. And like, I didn't even realize the totality of those situations, but it didn't change until it came to hair and makeup on competition days. That's when it really showed like that there was a difference between me and some of the girls on the cheerleading squad, because some of the makeup, we all had to have on the same lipstick. And think about the difference in red on a chocolate girl versus a vanilla girl. It just looks different. And also think about hair, putting your bows in your hair. And at this point, my hair was relaxed, so I had a completely different hairstyle. But yeah, so I just began, as I was thinking about today and thinking about the climate, I was just thinking about, this is what I came from. And then I matriculated into ECU, where I experienced many other things. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing I love to pride myself on. I actually was the homecoming queen for my senior year at that school. And I was on homecoming court all 4 years of high school. I was on homecoming court, but I did not win until my senior year. And so I was homecoming queen of the whole school. And that, that for me was just a huge confidence booster. I was like, wow. And still to this day, I often remind myself of that. But in the same sense, I also remind myself, you never want to ride on your past success. You always want to keep moving and keep pushing. So the next thing I have to say is, let your work precede you. So, right now, Mocha girls, we are in college, working hard. It's difficult, but if you stay commit to staying true to your mission, your work ethic will improve, because you are honing in what you're working for, even when it gets hard. If it's hard, you'll find different you'll find different resources, or ask some questions that you probably wouldn't have asked if you're just, passively going through school. And so let your work precede you. And, so people can't deny, for example, they can't deny you simply because of your skin color. Like in these systems, they're not going to say, I don't want you here. Or we see that in today's age, we see it more. But when you're actually going through these education systems, they're not going to say, I don't want you here because you're Black. I don't want you here because you are a minority or a person of color. I don't want you here. They're never going to say that at all. But you don't want to give them something that, or I don't even want to phrase it like that at all. You want to make sure that your work ethic, they'll say, I might not like her viewpoints on a lot of things, but one thing I can't take away from her is she works really hard. She might not get all the subjects, but she's going to figure it out before test day. Or she might, for example, since we're talking about dentistry, she might in lab, she might get frustrated, and you might see over there like having a hard day, but she's going to come back the next day even harder. And so those are some of the things. And then also when we have climates like these, where it's like, this is something that all of us kind of identify. Some of the stories even that I shared today is some that all of us have identified with in one way or another. So we have these experiences, and all of our experiences are different. But it's important in times like this, for example, where not only are we in COVID and, it's highlighted, and there's clear evidence that it has affected my minority people or African American people in a different way than it has, for example, the same patient with the same disease that is of a different descent. And why are those things? And so when you are having these discussions, like for example with COVID, separate even from George Floyd, for example, you need to include leadership in the discussions, because your leadership is ultimately there to support and represent you. They are getting paid to represent and support you. So I encourage you, take a couple of days to reflect. Take a couple of days to be mad. Share with the people that might have similar experiences than you or different experiences and might understand. Share how you feel out of frustration. But also, when you are trying to make a statement, or when you are trying to figure out solutions, because ultimately we see this huge problem, it's been this huge problem for years, but we're like, okay, now the world is kind of catching hold on this huge problem. It's being more evident than normal recently. So when we have these times, it's important to just include your leadership in this conversation. Or if you're like, I don't know how to encourage or include my leadership in this conversation, do things that you do know. Hey, talk to your classmate. Hey, did you reach out to me during this time? Maybe you didn't know how to reach out to me, for example. Or what's another one? Request a face-to-face meeting, or during this COVID season, a virtual meeting with someone to speak with them and say, here are my thoughts. But again, when it comes to your work ethic and letting your work speak for you, it's important to not say, okay, here is my problem. Here's my problem, and I want you to find a way to fix it. When it comes to racial equity, they don't know how to fix it, because equity is different from equality. So equity is, or equality is, we're going to offer everybody the same. We're going to give everybody the same thing. We're going to give them all the same opportunities. The same. Equity is saying, okay, we recognize that there's some differences and deficiencies in different groups of populations. What can we do to give these different populations, whether they're white or whether they're Black, or whether they're Hispanic, or, you know, Asian, or Indian, or indigenous people, or anyone. How, you know, what do these different groups need? And so you want to, again, make sure you include your leadership, and recognize that they might not get it, or you might not understand, but when you say but, just say, hey, it's okay to say, I don't know, I'm trying to figure it out like you. And in that situation, offer solutions. Okay, so for example, we have I'm not gonna say we, a school has a summer reading. Okay, undergrads have summer reading when they first enter college, typically. Professional schools sometimes adopt summer reading. Something that you can bring to your leadership that's not a easy change, but it's something there's already a system in place, is to say, hey, why don't we discuss what summer reading we have for the incoming freshmen, or for the incoming, you know, students, and say, hey, you know, in the past when I was incoming, I read this book. And, you know, when I read this book, I was kind of like, why am I reading this book? You know, like what was the leadership trying to, what were they trying to deliver through this activity? And saying, hey, this activity, you know, I think it can be enhanced by, and then offer some different options. And this is why I chose this option and this. And so it's like, on an undergraduate, it's a little bit different in professional school. But in undergraduates, what that looks like is going to your dean of students, and similar, I guess, in professional school too, but going to your dean of students, because Mocha Girls is an organization, you all have an advisor, someone that can speak on your behalf. Going to student transitions, Office of Student Transitions, for example, with ECU, I can speak from ECU because I went there. But yeah, that. And finding different ways to say, hey, we all see this problem, but, you know, let's offer some solutions. And in my second, I don't remember what list I'm at now, but do not limit yourself or stay away from the uncomfortability. You know, the reality is that when we enter these professions, it's not ultimately just about you. You know, when we enter these professions, it's for a bigger goal. At one point, people that identify, or what we identify as Mocha girls, were not allowed to ultimately go to college, and secondly, not go to a professional school. And so with that being said, just keep in mind, like, no, I don't speak for, I can't, there's kind of a limit to how I can speak for, like, for example, one Black person cannot speak for all Black people because we have different differing opinions. But what I can do is just say, when I see a little bit of deficiency, say, okay, what is already in place, and what is the goal of the university, or what is the goal of the school, and alter that, or not alter that, but just speak to your leadership about it. And personally, I never thought when I was entering dental school that, like, I never considered my Blackness in my process during dental school. Yes, I knew I was the first in my family to go to dental school. Yes, I understood that, you know, where I'm at is a blessing. I understood that. But when I went to dental school, I was like, you know, we're all at the same space. We all applied. We all went through an interview process. We all, you know, talked to a professor to get letter of recommendations. We all took the DEAT, or, you know, MCAT, or whatever, OSAT, whatever. We all took those tests and they said, hey, we want you. And they picked you and they put you in these seats. And now they're like spitting information at you, teaching the discipline that you're going into. Never did I think of, hey, okay, I have to take into account my Blackness, but in times like that we're currently in, when it comes to the world, it forces you to think about those things. For example, Apple Music kind of, in a way, forced everyone who will listen to that platform to see in Black music. And so when I saw that, I was like, wow, this is a part of, and there's some conversations that should be had because of that. And how do I go about that? And the last thing that I have to say before I open for questions is recognize that the work just begun. You know, when you go into, you work hard, you work so hard to get into these programs, but the reality is the work has just begun. And it's easier said than done, I'll tell you. But yeah, so that's what I have for you all. Do you all have any questions for me? Or even for Octavia, at that matter? And thank you for this opportunity.
I think we need to collect the offering for you, Courtney. Y'all are preaching. Oh my gosh, that was so amazing. Like, I don't have any questions. I mean, I want to, of course, ask you about your experiences and, how you felt personally, but that's more off the record stuff. But just your points and your guidelines, I mean, you explained it to a T. And your story, your name is Octavia?
Yes, that's correct.
Your story is everything. Very inspiring. Thank you both for speaking on your experiences. I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm about to be in tears, but yes, that was really great. I appreciate y'all for coming on.
You're welcome. And I just want to acknowledge, Brittany actually had a question in the chat box here. And it says, what has been your biggest struggle during your first year that you wish someone would have talked with you about before starting? I don't know, Courtney, if you want to answer first, or I can. Well, we'll give you a little break since you just talked.
Yeah,
but
let me.
as my biggest struggle, personally, I think has been meshing personalities. So I don't know if you're into zodiacs. I'm very much so Leo. I'm very outgoing. I'm very loving. I'm very just kind of just do it and raw. And sometimes that can be a little bit overwhelming. And I think, let's say in undergrad, you kind of have friends of all disciplines. So you have an English major friend or health science or exercise science or art, and you're just kind of different, versus when you get into professional school and everyone's smart and everybody's somewhat type A, they all have their kind of things. And when you put basically all of these leaders into one room, kind of everybody knows how to stand up and everybody knows when to kind of sit back. But sometimes that can be a little bit different, especially if you were raised to, let's say good morning or whatever. You're a morning person and someone's not, and you come in all like, hey, and then somebody's like, and so now you're like, oh, she got an attitude, but really she just didn't have coffee yet. Like, that's kind of been one of maybe a bigger adjustment for us. The actual work, like I said, is kind of things that you've seen already, some hydrogen, some oxygens, you put them together and you breathe, whatever. And it just goes a little bit deeper than that. And but I think once you, like anything, get to know people, it gets a lot better. So that's been one of my just personal struggles, and it has gotten better. So I'm actually pretty thankful for that. So what about you, Courtney?
Honestly, I think I will have to agree with you on that, wholeheartedly. Like, that is by far the biggest struggle. So I will give a second one, and the second one would be not really understanding. Like I knew, like I had an idea that professional school was going to take up a lot of my time, but I didn't realize how um, dental school was going to literally not invade, but kind of seep through all aspects of my life. So not, we are in school from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. During COVID season, we have a little bit of a break, which is a little nice. But when you're in there from 8 to 5, for example, there's people that work 8 to 5. They come home, they get to eat, and they get to relax on the couch and watch some TV or do something they like to do. But for us, it's like, all right, that's study time, or that's time I have to go work on my hand skills, or I didn't quite get that thing in lab, so I know it's 5 o'clock, but I'm gonna stay till around 7 so I can kind of get this, because I know the next day we're doing something else. And I want to kind of stay on track. And so I didn't realize how much professional school was going to take up a precedence. So for example, my mom's like, hey, we're having a family dinner this Saturday. We'll love for you to come. And it's like, she's telling you this Wednesday night, and you're like, hold up. That requires me to drive 2 hours away. That requires me to be present at the dinner table. That requires me to adjust my studying schedule. That requires me, I usually go grocery shopping on Saturdays. I'm missing groceries. Or am I going to buy groceries there and try to transport them 2 hours away? Or I'm going to or have to leave. It's just, you have so many things to think about. So I think that's the second biggest struggle. But the first is truly meshing personality types.
I was going to ask you guys about, would you have chosen to go into something different? I mean, we know that there's a physician assistance program, or, anything like that. I'm not sure what, I don't know about dental assistants, if y'all would have thought about doing that. But would you have gone into, a program that maybe took a little less time, so that you could have more freedom? Or are you happy with the decision that you've made, going full throttle and becoming a doctor and becoming a dentist?
Janelle, you want to ask something?
I'll go ahead and answer that. I am very happy for choosing dentistry, and I think in making your choice is something that you are passionate about, and you should make that decision for you. If you are passionate about medicine, then do medicine. If you are passionate about dentistry, do dentistry, because at the end of the day, like, you work this long, how many ever years it takes you to do it, and you have to go to work every day after this. So you have to enjoy that. Let's say, I don't know, what, 30 years? Is that what people work? I don't really know. I don't plan to work that long. But you still have to enjoy it while you are in it. And my personal reasons for choosing dentistry was because, like I said, where I'm from, there are no dentists. So it's people with their teeth rotting out and everything else. And I had to, let's say I could be a CNA somewhere else, or like I said, I could be with my mom at a nursing home, but I chose something that no one else is doing because it was needed in my community. And so in that, you don't really have anybody to help you navigate that space, but you choose that road for your own reasons. So I'm still passionate about teeth and smiles. And even now, what we're learning so much more is that, yes, it's just teeth, but then that teeth is also connected to a whole person. So where I thought I was just going to be fixing some smiles and telling people they might have high blood pressure or something like that, it's like, no, actually, you got to know all this stuff. And you may be their first point of contact when it comes to the whole rest of their body. So, yes. I'm still happy that I chose dentistry and not anything else.
I would just echo what Octavia said about following your passion, but also to knowing your options and really understanding the lifestyle of the profession that you're going after, because that really, really dictates. I mean, for some of my friends, it kind of even dictated which profession they chose. Like, okay, I'm not going to do this one because I want to have a certain family life, or I'm not going to do that. And so just knowing your options. I always ask people when they tell me they want to go into medicine, I tell them, do you like math? Because if you like math, you could go engineering and save yourself a whole lot of time, discipline, struggles, and stuff like that. But, I am happy personally that I chose medicine because I truly enjoy learning about the human body. I like to know how it works and stuff like that. But, originally my dad wanted me to be an engineer and my mom wanted me to be a dentist. And kind of in retrospect, dentistry might have kind of been something that I slept on, because more than medical experience, I had so much dental experience. I was just terrible with candy as a child, and I had way more interactions with dentists. And, I could have probably been a very influential member of the dental community. And it would have probably been something I'm passionate about too, because I'm really passionate about teeth and, preventative care for your teeth. But, I'm happy with medicine, even though it's like, ooh, that schedule. It wasn't no breaks during COVID. It came at us full throttle, 100%. I just crossed the finish line on Friday, but yes, follow your passion. Yes, it's over.
Okay. Another question. I've been thinking about a bunch of questions. So Courtney, you talked a little bit. Oh,
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
okay. You talked a little bit about recognizing your Blackness during this time as it relates to, being in your professional school. So how does that change how you view the people around you? Do you feel hypersensitive when you're talking to this goes for all of you guys. Do you feel hypersensitive when you're talking to, your classmates? Do you feel hypersensitive when your professors are, talking about whatever they are talking about? Because I've noticed even in myself, like just watching TV, I'm like, wait a minute, that was racist, So I've been feeling a little bit of that hypersensitivity. And how have you coped with that, if you have experienced it?
Okay. So I definitely would say that I have felt a hypersensitive, I can definitely agree with your statement. How I have coped with it, one is actually go back to the biggest struggle of dental school. When enmeshing personalities and talking with people, actually talking with the people that are in my program that look like me, and not actually talking to them because we see each other every day, we talk to each other every day, but having a conversation of, this is how it makes me feel, how does it make you feel? And also in that, recognizing that we all do not think the same at all. And that's okay. And that's the beauty of all of us. That's the beauty and why they chose us for dental school, and the beauty of who we are as individuals. And how I've coped with that situation is I've thought about it. And so me personally, I'm glad that the world is, I'm not glad about I'm not glad about the events that has sparked the conversation, but I am glad that as a country and as globally, a conversation is being had in a different way. So I realized, and I just reflected, I had to sit back because initially first of all, I gave myself a time to experience all emotions. So at first it was kind of like a shock. Then it was kind of like a grief. Like someone passed in our community. So it was like I was grieving and I was mourning. And then it turned into kind of feeling, like uneasy. And then it was kind of being mad, but figuring out how to be mad, but one, still do what I have to do every single day, and be mad and not let it turn into anger and project on to someone. So for example, God says it's okay. I can't remember the scripture word for word, but he said it's okay to be angry, but sin not. And it's okay to be mad pretty much, but sin not while you're angry. And so I had to think about, how do I balance that? And then I started to think about it, and I was like, ultimately this is something that our community has been experiencing for years. Like, we have 300, 400 years now we have been experiencing this. And so I thought about it, and I was like, what have I done in the past? What have I done to talk about this? And so one of the things I did in undergrad, right before I graduated from undergrad, is in one of my public health classes, because I was a public health major and I actually didn't explain any of my academics, but it's okay. But I was a public health major, and we had to create I cannot remember the actual word, but we had to create a document that our project was to create a document concerning a health issue, and how would we talk to a community leader or representative about this issue in less than 5 minutes, to get our point across in 5 minutes. And we had to create a model after we talked to them. What were the next steps for that? And I struggled because everybody was picking something for their profession. I knew I love dentistry. I still love dentistry. I'm so glad I chose this profession. But in that moment, I was like, all these people are doing, like, there's multiple people that were interested in dentistry in the room. And I was like, all these people are choosing dental things. And I was like, I'm going to dental school, so I'll explore that when I get there. But I was like, what would something that I would legit want to talk about that is a public health concern? And I was the only one that didn't do like a disease, and mine was mass incarceration. And at first I struggled with, how do I connect mass incarceration to a health issue, like communicating that to people, like outwardly. I know this, but how do I communicate this outwardly? And then I had to start thinking, like, I do not have a criminal justice background. I have a public health and a chemistry background. So I had to start thinking, okay, navigating some and understanding some of the systems that we have in place to proceed in my goal. So that's kind of, yeah, what I do and what I do. And so I took that and I was like, okay, I took that experience, translated it to now, and say, what can I do while I'm in dental school to push my goal, or everyone's goal, forward, which is racial equity forward.
I don't think I actually remember the question in detail, but I do, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you said just some experiences that you've had racially and how you cope with them. That was it? Okay, so it made me think about an instance in class, actually, where, well, first of all, so I was elected our class's president, which is cool and all. And so one day in class, and Courtney was there, of course, one of the teachers, and he's new, fairly new or whatever, and we're in lab, so it's a big space, and he's like, who's the class president? I need to like ask them something. And so he's like scanning the room, and he's standing right here beside me. He's scanning the room, and I'm like, and he's like, who is it? And he's like looking, everybody's like pointing at me at this point. He's like, oh, I didn't expect that. And I was just like, what you mean? Like, oh, explain. And
I was right there too. I was like,
okay. And I mean, you're like, is it a race thing or is it a sexist thing? Could be a little bit of both. I don't know. And I mean, I don't know this person to know how they intended it. And just my personality, I was just kind of like, okay. And I think as you like become into yourself, you kind of learn like when to speak up and when not to speak up. And in that moment, it was not okay because I was still very like, But I still, after that, after, you know, it kind of cooled down, I went up to him and I was like, what did you mean by that? Like, what do you mean you didn't expect a 1 Black and 2 woman to be a class president? And like most people, they just kind of shook it off and it's like, oh, you know, I just didn't know. I'm like, okay, sure. And I didn't fight the issue. I didn't. I mean, who knows? And you choose your battles, you know, the things that are worth fighting and the ones that are not. I would say racially, also in school, you are put into a room again with people that come from a long line of dentists, and then people like me and Courtney that are first generation college students or first generation dentist or whatever. That can make you feel intimidated. It makes you feel like I'm already 4 generations behind, which we are kind of already know because slavery. But when you're beside that person, you feel like you have to work even harder to make yourself kind of adequate with them. And the truth is, just because they come from dentists don't mean they just as smart or just as good. They might know a thing or two more, but it means nothing. Honestly, you can work harder and be on top or whatever. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And then lastly, racially, in med school, dental school, you will have these ethics classes, right? And that can be pretty interesting sometimes, the things that come up. And I think it comes from your teachers on how that conversation is had. And let's say, I don't know if anyone is familiar with the DeMonte Driver story. In very short, basically a little boy from a poor family or whatever, he had a cavity, and that cavity ended up being so bad that he ended up getting an abscess. It went to his brain or his heart or somewhere, and he died, right? But somewhere in between there, his mom reached out for help. His mom called around for offices, like, can somebody help me? Can somebody see him? Some people was like, oh, you gotta wait to get on the schedule, some other stuff like that, whatever. But in one of our ethics classes, we were talking about something maybe similar or something like that. And our teacher that was facilitating the conversation was asking questions. And of course, you know, everybody would throw out, oh, socioeconomic status or this, or maybe it's that. And she's like, oh, you mean like racist, basically? People were being racist. And mind you, there are 8 African-American people in our class, and we're all like, yeah, say it, you know, and the other people feel a little uncomfortable. But I think having leadership or teachers or whoever that kind of make those uncomfortable situations happen makes you talk about it. And one, that made me feel comfortable, knowing that someone was not scared to say that word or throw it around. And having other people, if they did feel uncomfortable, really have to face it. Like, you know, that's a real word. You can't hide from it. It's a thing. And if you weren't uncomfortable at hearing the word, then good. I mean, you have no issues, no worries, or anything to reflect about. So those are just some instances that I've personally kind of dealt with. And I feel like coping with it, of course, like Courtney said, you have your classmates, and then you have even people in your school, or even in, let's say, in the health sciences arena. There's always someone that you can relate to. And I think schools should do maybe an even better job at placing faculty in positions that students can also go to. Of course, we have our like few, and there are a few, but I think that's something that could be changed and done a little bit differently. So that's what I got.
I just make a quick comment when you say dealing with racism in professional settings. I would just always say, you don't have to be rude. You can be professional, you can be sincere, but I, just like Octavia did, like just bring it to the forefront attention. I say always address. Maybe I got big Leo energy as well, so I'm not sure if that has to do with it, but I would definitely say speak up. Know that as a human being, as a medical student, you have rights, and people cannot and do not allow them to violate your rights or treat you any kind of way because you're supposed to go through a hazing process, or just because that's just how it is, or social norms. And even be wary sometimes that it is also always great to seek advice from your elders, but I think a lot of our elders have been conditioned to like turn the other cheek and don't fight the system and just let it go. And so just understand that your new mindset, your millennial self, your 2020 version of yourself should not allow that, and don't think that you need to fall within those toxic norms.
And I want to piggyback off what she said. Also recognize that you have been doing the work. Like, just because, again, like we're hyper aware right now doesn't negate that this is something that you have been about and that you will continue being about. And how you can tell, for example, an example is we're in this space right now. You're doing the work right now. And so that has been comforting too, because it's like, okay, you're stressed out and you're like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, and I'm thinking in my head, a certain group of people or different individuals of different groups of people are recognizing for the first time in their head, like these inequalities exist. And it's not really, equality is not the goal either. It's equity, and trying to like reason through those, but also remember for yourself, I've been about this work. Like, this is nothing new. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm glad we kind of changed the landscape a little bit. And since the landscape is a little bit more clear, let's navigate this. Let's, roll over here. Or if this part is smooth, let's drive down here, So that's been comforting too.
That, yes, yes, yes. Okay. I don't want to hold you guys too long, but I have one more question that I wanted to get in. You as, three Black female professionals, up and coming, already professionals, what are you guys' plan to directly affect change, in whatever community physically that you end up in your community in general? I know that, me, I've started Mocha Girls, and my ultimate plan is to become a women's health physician to help minority women, and kind of, we're not gonna go down that road, but y'all already know. So that's my goal, but I just want to hear from you guys. Do you have similar goals, or do you not want to even deal with the race thing? Or I just want to hear from y'all.
Well, I tap in real quick, shortly, briefly, but my approach has always been to just push as many, or elevate or pull up as many minority students, Black students, HBCU students as I can possibly help into the field of medicine, and also to spread the information, to spread correct information, because sometimes the Facebook posts and YouTube videos, they're not correct. So to be a reliable source of accurate information, and to help boost as many minorities as I can into the field. And something that is ultimately my goal actually is to be a chancellor and founder of my own medical school one day. So that is something that I'm rapidly looking at. A book that's really good to read is Anatomy of a Dream. Is the founding of the Herbert Wertheim School of Medicine, and just to see how much work gets put into making a medical institution. But to be the chancellor of a medical school is like big goals.
That's huge, Janelle. I never knew that.
Janelle, can you please repeat that title? Anatomy of a Dream?
Yeah, Anatomy of a Dream. I'm not sure who's the thing, but it's like a very unique name, and I'm sure it's probably Herbert Wertheim himself. But Anatomy of a Dream.
Thank you. I guess for me, I'm still kind of exploring. I'm ultimately exploring, what I want to do with my, like how I want to inflict change within my community when it comes to being a doctor. But currently, right now, okay, thank you. Anatomy of a Dream. Thomas, okay, thank you. I will be snagging that. But I'm still kind of open to the opportunities. Um, I wouldn't say that I have end goals because growing up, because dentistry has literally been something I've always said. Like when growing up, when they asked, what do you want to do? I never said like a police officer or a teacher or a dancer, or I've never been that person. I've always said dentistry. And so as a little girl or as a younger adult, I would say, oh, I would love a practice. And I realized like I can have a practice and some. And so now I'm really exploring what that and some is, and also recognizing that I have no ties. Like my parents, when I graduate dental school, they're going to be retiring and transitioning out of their careers, and so they're planning on moving from Fayetteville, North Carolina. And so I'm like, okay, Fayetteville is not really home because I don't have any family there. Michigan is. I do want to cater to North Carolina. So how am I going to cater to North Carolina? What residencies? Mind you, I'm single, so it's just like I'm thinking like I have no ties relationally. So, and my parents are young enough and they're healthy, and it's not like I have to be right by them. Like within, I'm the only child, so traveling distance, of course, within a day, I need to get to my parents within a day. But it's just like, just seeing like what that looks like and being open to what that looks like. So, yeah.
And so my goals, kind of much like Janelle, is one, I started becoming, as soon as I got into dental school, I was like, clearly I know what I'm doing. So I'm going to help other people out, because I had no one up until, let's say, until 2018-ish. I didn't have anyone that looked like me that could show me the ropes or tell me what to do. So now with becoming doctor, literally I put it all out there. I'm like, sis, nobody's going to tell you how to write the disadvantage statement because they don't know, or they're just not going to tell you, or they're too ashamed to tell you. I'm like, sis, you went to jail before, or you stole from Walmart or whatever. People do that too, and no one ever talks about it. And I mean, I feel like I'm gonna keep it real with you. Like I just am, and no one does. And so that's a thing in helping as many people. Yes, I'm pro Black or whatever, but just minorities, period. Because there's also Indian people out there that don't feel comfortable going to a white person or a Black person because they know, like, there's no other language really like it that they can understand or anything like that. So just minorities, period, or anyone, helping them get into school. And I guess long term, like Courtney, I like to travel and do everything else. And so I'm thinking, yeah, I have to go set up a practice back home because there's not one. But I'm also like, these old people, or I'm sorry, meth mouth people or whoever, like they still need someone to serve them as well. So why not have mobile units? I can go to them, and I can fly out on Friday, or, you can move around a lot better that way. So I think my long-term goal is to have mobile units to be able to serve people that can't come to me.
I think Kayla had a question in the chat. How do you balance school with your personal life, especially since you guys have YouTube platforms as well? Which is a good question.
I'll be honest, there wasn't much personal life in there. I mean, you gotta just allocate your time. Especially in block one, I feel like block one, our schedules are just slammed. And so like at the end of the day, when I'm done studying all of that, like I leave an hour or 30 minutes to towards the end of my day that I know that just my day. If I just want to sit on the couch and look at the TV, not even on, I can do that, or sit there and scroll on my social media or something just to like leave some time for me. But yeah, in personal life, I mean, staying in touch with your friends and family, that's a thing too, because you can get lost with your head in a book. I say that to people all the time. You can like be in this book and so much time go by and you not even realize it. So I mean, keeping in touch with friends and family, um allocating time for yourself is a must, absolute necessity. And I haven't really been able to YouTube much. I say I'm gonna like rack up my YouTube videos over the summer, and I have been able to like interact in person, like through Damaris with students and students that I've mentored or met during other programs that I have been either in charge of or working in as a chaperone. But yeah, the personal life thing, you just have to be able to put in your sacrifice for your ultimate goal. That's that perseverance word.
One thing I'll add, I completely agree with her. In balancing my school and personal life, I have set like not non-negotiables, but kind of. So one thing that I try to not compromise on is I have a pretty good church family, and so I'm like on Wednesday nights, even if I will go to church and I'll probably be like going like this because we just had an exam that day, but it will still force me to be not only taking in the word of God, because I try to do that daily, but also being around people outside of, because I'm by far an extra. Well, I teeter totter between like extrovert and introvert. I'm always like 51, 49. So I do really thrive off of other people. And so sometimes it's like when I thrive off of other people, but I've been with the same people 40 hours for, at this point, 40 something weeks, you're looking at each other like, so it kind of gives me another group of people that I can go and see and talk to, even if I have nothing to say that day, or even if I'm like hanging on, I'm like, ooh, or there's times where I'm like, nope, can't go that day. And so that's something I do during Wednesday, but on the weekend, I always give myself a fun day. And so I don't take the whole day, but I'm like, okay, you're going to do something fun. So my fun day is Saturday. I'm like, okay, if you know you have a heavy load of it, like for when it comes to didactic, which is traditional coursework, let's wake up at 6 o'clock, make a good breakfast, drink your tea. Easier said than done now, but drink your tea, or coffee. I don't really care for coffee, and just go hard to like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. And so that goes like, let's say from 7 to 1 o'clock. Then I'm like, all right, let's go have fun. We have events, keep in contact with your friends. I show up for birthdays. Um, and I go from there. So yeah, that's how I manage. And also, if you have a group of girls that are that you have a group of girls that you're close with, for example, I do. So we schedule times. You're like, all right, we need a check-in. And so we're all like, we have a group chat and we just FaceTime each other and talk for however time.
So yeah, all of the above. It all comes down to time management, of course. Like I have to reiterate the whole school part. But yeah, make time for yourself, whatever that is. Sometimes you have to be like, forget it. Like my mental health is better than any test that I'll ever take. So I would rather get a B on this test, but at least I know I'm rested, or, I'm okay within. So that's normal. But as far as the whole social media platforms, it can become consuming sometimes, or you feel pressured to always put stuff out there, or to sometimes my inbox just blows up, especially when applications open up. And I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta respond to all these people like right now. And yes, like you do, because that's what you kind of signed up for. Um, and usually people, they give you grace. They're like, I know you're in class right now. Just, whenever you can look at this, please do. And that's fine. But I think it, like anything, like going to work every day, if it's something that you're passionate for, then you make the time. Since COVID and stuff, honestly, this is probably the most I've ever done to my face since then. So I haven't made too many videos. But you find a way, basically. And honestly, sometimes I sit in class and make infographics or whatever, because that's just what I want to do in that moment. And you learn to multitask and make it work for whatever it is that you want to do. And I was really hoping that Courtney would mention in her self-care routine is sometimes, and I think it's important, Courtney, if you don't mind me sharing, is that if you can be in class and you can be feeling overwhelmed or whatever else, and you just got to step out. You just got to go step out, go stand outside or whatever. It's not our designated break time, but you're like, I'm just mentally not here and I have to take care of myself, and I'm going to give myself 10 minutes, whether they're going to give it to me or not. And that's okay. Totally okay. And what are they going to do? Kick you out? No.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
I really kind of, I'm scared to do stuff like that. But when I saw Courtney do it, and I really commended her for putting herself first. So yeah, personal life, you can have a personal life. You just have to make time for it, budget it in. Anything else you want to do, you budget it in and you're fine.
And it's the learning game too. You're gonna be better. Like I would say Octavia and I can't speak for Janelle because I don't see her every day, but Octavia and I, there was some weekends where we were like, oh girl, we probably shouldn't have made that, choice to go do X, Y, and Z. We probably should have stayed back and carved a little more time, or this was a little bit more stressful. But you live and you kind of learn, and you just learn as you go, really, and you get better at time management as you go.
Well, I know you all. Thank you for that, everybody. Whew. Y'all, I got some things to think about. Because I'm going to be honest, physics took me out. Janelle, because I was crying on the phone. Physics took me out. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if this is for me like that anymore. But just, hearing from you all and seeing you guys, thank you for getting on. It's just like so inspiring. And, I've been receiving signs here and there like, okay, Damaris, this is what you're supposed to be doing. It's time for you to fall in line type of thing. So I'm in the process of putting myself in line with my purpose, my calling, what I'm supposed to be doing. And you guys have been a major, major help. Just hearing your stories, hearing everything. I've even at ease with all that's going on in terms of the racial things. Just hearing you guys' stories. Thank you. But yeah, thank you for coming on.
Easy on yourself. Are you even 19 yet? Like, you have time. You about to graduate college and you're a teenager still. Just, you got it. You got it. There's a lot.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm gonna listen to you. I'm gonna listen to you for once. Yeah. So I'm in that process. But Kayla, thank you for inviting these ladies and organizing this. This will be posted like right now as soon as we get off.
Yeah, thank y'all so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks. And Damaris, keep in touch. Kayla, good luck. Everybody have a wonderful evening.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.